Van Gogh sets up his easel in front of a tangle of roots and trunks on an ordinary Sunday morning. He doesn't sign the canvas. He leaves no letter explaining what it meant. And for more than 130 years, no one would even know where it had been painted. There is another painting, dark, almost without light, made 5 years earlier by Van Gogh, still trying to figure out what kind of artist he wanted to be. He sent that canvas to his brother, full of hope, convinced he had just created his masterpiece. The reply he got was a bucket of cold water. What could have happened between these two paintings? What changes in an artist's soul between the first time he believes in himself and the last gesture he makes before giving up on everything? Stay with me until the end, because the answer is hidden in the details of these two canvases. And one of those details was only uncovered by science quite recently. The two paintings I'm talking about are The Potato Eaters, painted in 1885, and Tree Roots, painted in 1890, both by Vincent van Gogh. The first is today at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. So is the second. The two live under the same roof, separated by only a few meters of wall, but by an entire lifetime from one another. Van Gogh painted The Potato Eaters at 32 years old, still in the Netherlands. He painted Tree Roots at 37 in Auvers-sur-Oise, France. Just hours, maybe just minutes, before walking out to a wheat field and shooting himself in the chest. Between one canvas and the other, it wasn't just 5 years that passed. Almost his entire creative life passed. And that's exactly the contrast I want to show you today. Not as two separate paintings, but as the beginning and the end of a single sentence that Van Gogh spent his whole life trying to finish. Let's start by really looking at The Potato Eaters. Notice the scene. A family of peasants gathered around a small table, sharing a plate of potatoes under the dim light of a single lamp hanging from the ceiling. Do you notice how almost everything in the canvas is dark? Brown, gray, a black that seems to blend into the very shadow of the room. The light doesn't come from outside. There's no window lighting this scene. The only source of brightness is that lamp, small, almost insufficient, dripping a yellowish glow over the tired faces of those people. Notice the hands, too. Van Gogh insisted in letters that he wanted it to be clear those were hands that had dug the earth, rough hands, deformed by labor, serving the very food they had helped grow. There's no elegance here. There's truth. The brushwork is heavy, almost coarse, as if the very texture of the paint were imitating the roughness of those people's lives. Now let's move to the other end of the room, where Tree Roots hangs. And here the experience of looking is completely different. There's no scene in the traditional sense, no people, no table, not even a horizon to tell you where the ground ends and the sky begins. What you see is a mass of trunks and roots, twisted, crossing in every direction, painted in colors that scream. Deep blues, acid greens, yellows that almost vibrate against the background. The brushwork here is no longer heavy and composed like in the first canvas. It's fast, nervous, almost violent, as if the hand holding the brush were in a hurry to finish something before time ran out. And in fact, it probably was. He never got to finish this painting. It remained, whether on purpose or not, incomplete. If you place these two canvases side by side without knowing they were made by the same person, it would be hard to believe. One seems contained, almost suffocated by its own darkness. The other seems about to burst out of its frame. And that's exactly where the heart of our conversation today lives. Now we reach the point I promised at the beginning. For more than 130 years, no one knew exactly where tree roots had been painted. The location of that tangle of trunks was a complete mystery, and that fueled every kind of theory about Van Gogh's state of mind on that final day. It was only in 2020 that a researcher at the Van Gogh Institute, sorting through old documents during a lockdown, noticed something strange in a postcard from the early 20th century. That postcard showed a hillside covered in brush with a set of trunks and roots, and their arrangement was identical to the one in the painting. An even older photograph from 1907 confirmed the discovery. The spot was only 150 meters from the inn where Van Gogh was staying. But the detail that really gives you chills is another one. The main trunk, the one at the center of the composition, still exists. You can go there today, more than 130 years later, and find the very same root Van Gogh painted just hours before he died. And there's yet another layer to this story. In 2023, a photographer studying the painting closely identified, at the top of the canvas, a shape that resembles a face in profile, a closed eye, as if someone were rising or dissolving among the trunks. There's no consensus about this, but for those who support this reading, it would be almost a hidden self-portrait, the silent final signature of a man who knew, or at least suspected, that this would be his farewell. Compare that to The Potato Eaters, where there's no hidden mystery, no intentional ambiguity. Everything there is exposed, literal, laid bare. Just as those people's lives were simple and without veils. A painting that explains itself. And another one that, even after more than a century of study, still holds secrets. And this is where opinions start to split. For some historians, tree roots is, above all, a metaphor for the struggle of life. The cut trunks, from which new shoots still sprout, representing resilience even in the midst of pain. under this view, Van Gogh's last painting wouldn't be a farewell note, but exactly the opposite, a reminder that life insists on continuing, even when everything around it looks dry and broken. Others disagree completely. For this second reading, the absence of sky, of horizon, of any vanishing point in the composition is exactly the opposite of hope. It's the representation of someone who no longer saw a way out, only the endless tangle of his own mind. In this interpretation, the supposed hidden face at the top of the canvas reinforces that idea. The figure would be drifting away, rising, saying goodbye to the material world represented by the roots. And maybe the more interesting question isn't which of these readings is correct, but why we need to choose just one. The Potato Eaters can also be read in different ways, as a tribute to the dignity of manual labor, or as a quiet critique of the living conditions of the Dutch peasant class of that period. Van Gogh never left instructions on how his canvases should be interpreted. He simply painted and let time and us decide the rest. In the end, what we have are two snapshots of the same man, taken at opposite moments of his journey. One, dark and contained, of someone still testing his own limits, searching for a place in the world of art. The other, vibrant and unfinished, of someone who perhaps already knew that would be his last creative gesture on a canvas. Why does this still matter today? Because these two paintings, together, tell us something no biography can sum up in words. How art can be, at the same time, the beginning of a search and the end of a struggle. And maybe that's exactly why, more than 130 years later, we still stand in front of these canvases, trying to understand what was going on in that man's mind. And you, after seeing these two works side by side, do you believe Tree Roots was one last cry of hope or a silent farewell? Leave your interpretation in the comments. I really want to read what you saw in those roots. If this story made you look at Van Gogh in a different way, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell, because every week I bring a new work and a new mystery for us to decode together. And if you know someone who also loves art, send them this video right now. See you in the next painting.